Boker Tov. So we have discussed last week the use of contraception in between pregnancies, and also before a couple have fulfilled the mitzvah of Peru, Urvu, the beginning of marriage. And now, just to end off this whole conversation with the discussion with regards to a couple who want to use contraception once they have fulfilled the mitzvah of Peru, Urvu. And they've had also extra children for the mitzvah of Shevet, the two mitzvot that we've been talking about. So let's say a family now have 4 children, whatever it may be, whether it's 2 boys, 2 girls, but they fulfilled Peru, Urvu. They definitely have a boy and a girl, and they have 4 children now, 5 children, and they feel that now's the time they want to stop having children. Now, this conversation is only applicable in a case where they fulfilled the mitzvah of Peru, Urvu, i.e., they've had a boy and a girl. A family have been blessed with 4 girls, a family tree been blessed with 4 boys. The following conversation is not relevant because they have not yet fulfilled the mitzvah of Peru, Urvu, and they will still have an obligation to continue to have children until they have had a boy and a girl. But say, as we've said, they've had a boy and a girl, they've done now the mitzvah of Shevet with an extra couple of children, whether it's 4 or 5 now, and now they feel it's time to take a break. What's the halachic status with that? So of course there are some poskim, many poskim, who would say that one has to continue, unless of course there is physical or mental concerns, then one needs to continue to have children. And some of the poskim go so far to say that even if one isn't certain that they have the ability to be mefarnes, to give them the ability, the sustenance, and to provide for them, still one has to trust in HaKadosh Baruch Hu and continue to have children. Of course, in terms of having breaks between the pregnancies, that's what we've discussed, the different views, whether it's 1 year and so on. But once that has passed, and let's say a couple got married at a young age, and they've had in the 20s and early 30s already 4 or 5 children. Now she's mid-30s. She has the ability to, and she's taken a break after the 4th child, a year or even 2 years, we've said. And now, what's to stop having children completely? So many of the poskim say no, you need to continue to have, even if one is unsure whether they have the ability to provide for them. That's one thing. However, there are different views, and again, with all of this, it's important to consult, and it's very difficult, as I've said many times already, to give definitive rulings on all of this, because there are so many permutations and variables with each and every family and couple and individual. But there are circumstances we find even in the Gemara. So, for example, there is a story in the Gemara, the wife of Rabbi Hiya, her name was Yehudit. She had 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls. Interestingly, the Gemara gives us the names of the children. The boys were called Yehuda and Hiskiah, and the girls were called Pazi and Tavi. Quite unusual for the Gemara to give us the names of the children, especially the female names. But these are the 4 names of the children. And Rabbi Hiya's wife clearly didn't want to continue to have children, and so she disguised herself. And so she went and asked Rabbi Hiya, her husband, but he didn't know it's his wife. Does a woman need to continue to have children? Is a woman commanded to fulfill the mitzvah of Peru, Urvu? And he said, no, a woman's not commanded to fulfill the mitzvah of Peru, Urvu, like we've learned. And the Gemara then goes, then she went and made herself unable to have further children. We'll discuss that B'ezrat Hashem coming up this week. The different forms of contraception. But in any case, the Gemara doesn't seem to condemn this. Doesn't seem to say this was wrong. Bihaya says that he would have liked to have more children, but it doesn't say it was wrong for her to do this. We find in the Rama says that if a person has children from his first wife and now his wife has died, or whatever it may be, and he wants to marry a second wife, and he's concerned that if he has children with the second wife, it's going to cause friction between his existing children and the new children, then he's allowed to marry a woman who's not going to be able to have children. Doesn't want to. So you see, there are circumstances. The Aruch HaShulchan, Rabbi Yechiel Michael Epstein, writes that the mitzvah to continue to have children beyond Peru, beyond Shevet, is im yesh koach lefarnesam, if he has the ability to provide for them. And so there are poskim that once one has fulfilled the mitzvah of Peru and of Shevet, then one is allowed to stop having children. But everyone agrees, every extra child brought into the world is a great mitzvah. And if one has the ability financially and mentally to be able to do that, there's no question about that. That is the best thing to do. And that is the mitzvah to do. And of course, that is, if possible, that's what's required. But one needs to take into account, as we've said, all the variables, all the circumstances of each individual person, each individual family, and make a decision appropriately. So that's the general discussion. Of course, there are many more details, and each case will depend on each individual person. But those are the general guidelines and framework for this conversation.